There are moments in life that do not announce themselves loudly, yet they alter the direction of your entire existence forever. And this is one of those moments. Something inside you already recognizes that, even if your mind is still trying to explain it away. You could have ignored this. You could have moved on without a second thought. Yet here you are, still reading, still feeling that strange pressure in your chest that refuses to loosen its grip. That feeling is not imagination. It is not coincidence. It is the part of you that has been asleep for far too long beginning to stir awake again. There is a reason your attention locked onto these words, as if they were reaching directly toward you through the noise of everything else surrounding your life. Because beneath all the distractions, beneath the endless responsibilities, disappointments, and emotional exhaustion you have carried, your soul has been searching for recognition. It has been waiting for a moment like this, a moment where something finally speaks to the truth you have always felt, but never fully understood. This message was never created for the crowd. Most people would pass by it without feeling anything at all. But you felt something immediately, didn't you? A pause, a pull, a quiet reaction deep inside yourself that almost felt uncomfortable because of how personal it seemed. That is because some part of you already knows this is not random. You were guided here for a reason that goes beyond logic. And before you continue any further, allow yourself to fully arrive here mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Because what is unfolding is not simply another video filled with temporary motivation that fades the moment it ends. This is something different. This is the beginning of recognition. The beginning of remembering who you were before the world convinced you to become smaller than your spirit was designed to be. So take this moment seriously. Engage with this energy intentionally. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and consciously anchor yourself into this frequency, because your transformation cannot survive in environments that constantly pull you back into limitation. Real change requires repetition. It requires immersion. It requires surrounding your mind with messages powerful enough to dismantle the old identity you have unconsciously carried for years. And if you have recently felt an almost unbearable hunger for something greater, for abundance, that feels aligned instead of forced, for opportunities that seem connected to your deeper purpose rather than survival, then understand that this feeling did not appear out of nowhere. Your inner world has been sensing movement long before your external reality could reflect it. That pressure building quietly beneath your everyday life is not anxiety without meaning. It is the sensation of a timeline beginning to shift underneath your feet. You may not yet have evidence. You may not yet see visible proof. But your soul already recognizes that something enormous is approaching. There is a reason you have felt emotionally stretched lately, as if the version of yourself you once relied on can no longer contain who you are becoming. There is a reason ordinary routines suddenly feel empty, why conversations that once distracted you now feel hollow, why you cannot shake the feeling that your life is preparing for a massive turning point, even though you cannot fully explain why. Your spirit understands what your mind is still struggling to accept. You are approaching a reality that was always waiting for you, a reality connected to the deepest blueprint hidden inside your existence from the very beginning. Nothing you endured was accidental, not the heartbreaks that shattered your confidence, not the betrayals that made you question your value, not the delays that forced you to sit in uncertainty while everyone else seemed to move ahead. Every painful season carried a hidden purpose that you could not recognize while you were surviving it. What felt like abandonment was preparation. What felt like rejection was redirection. What felt like isolation was initiation. Long before your first breath entered this world, before anyone spoke your name, before your identity formed inside this physical reality, something far beyond human understanding had already begun shaping the path your soul would walk. A design was written into you long before you became aware of yourself. That design still exists within you now, buried underneath years of conditioning, fear, disappointment, and emotional survival. Yet despite everything you have been through, it never disappeared. It waited, quietly, patiently, watching every lesson, every wound, every difficult experience carve depth into your spirit. And the truth is, the path meant for people like you was never supposed to feel easy. Souls chosen for deeper transformation are rarely given comfortable journeys. They are refined through pressure. They are strengthened through emotional fire. They are awakened through experiences intense enough to either destroy them completely or reveal the power hidden underneath their suffering. Many people break when life pushes against them repeatedly. Many lose themselves trying to escape the pain. But somehow, even during your darkest moments, there remained a part of you that refused to die. Even when you felt emotionally exhausted, spiritually disconnected, and mentally overwhelmed, something inside you kept observing, kept learning, kept waiting for the moment everything would finally begin making sense. That surviving presence within you is the blueprint awakening again. And now it is becoming impossible to ignore. Deep down, you have always sensed that your life would never unfold like everyone else's. Even as a child, there may have been moments where you felt strangely disconnected from the paths people expected you to follow. While others found comfort in ordinary routines, something inside you felt unsettled, almost as if your spirit could see beyond the limits everyone else accepted without question. You tried to fit in at times. You tried to silence that restless feeling and convince yourself that wanting more meant being unrealistic. Yet no matter how hard you attempted to suppress it, the feeling always returned. That quiet awareness that your life carried a different rhythm. That sense that you were seeing reality through another lens entirely. And for years you may have mistaken this for confusion or loneliness, when in truth it was spiritual recognition. Your soul has always known you were not built for a life disconnected from your deeper purpose. That discomfort you carried was never weakness. That feeling of not fully belonging anywhere was never evidence that something was wrong with you. It was a signal guiding you away from realities too small for your spirit. The universe was never asking you to shrink yourself into spaces that could not hold your true essence. You were meant to question what others blindly accepted. You were meant to search beneath the surface. You were meant to awaken. And now the very qualities you once tried to hide are becoming the evidence of who you truly are. The sensitivity you thought made you different. The emotional depth you struggled to explain. The constant inner pull toward something bigger than survival. None of it was accidental. Your path was always leading towards something deeper, something transformative, something destined to reveal the power you have carried within yourself all along. Most people spend their entire existence running from the very thing that could transform them. They pray for change. They beg for a breakthrough. They ask the universe for a higher life. Yet the moment their reality begins to crack apart, they panic and assume something has gone wrong. But the deeper truth, the truth only discovered by those who are truly awakening, is that alignment rarely enters your life gently. It arrives like an earthquake beneath the identity you once trusted. It shakes loose the foundations you thought would hold forever. It dismantles illusions with such intensity that for a while you cannot tell whether you are being destroyed or reborn. Think about the seasons in your life when everything became uncertain all at once. The relationships that suddenly collapsed despite your effort to save them. The opportunities that disappeared just when you thought they were finally within reach. The moments where your future felt blurred, unstable, almost unrecognizable. At the time, it may have felt cruel. You may have stared at your life asking why everything seemed to unravel the moment you started hoping for something greater. But what if those moments were never punishment? What if the chaos was actually correction? What if the universe was removing you from environments your soul had already outgrown long before your mind was willing to let go? There are attachments people carry for years without realizing those attachments are quietly suffocating their destiny. Old identities, old emotional patterns, old beliefs about worthiness, love, success, survival. Sometimes a person becomes so familiar with suffering that they mistake it for stability. And when life begins tearing away what no longer aligns with their deeper blueprint, they interpret the disruption as failure instead of initiation. Yet every painful collapse carried hidden intelligence. Every uncomfortable ending exposed something you needed to see. The friendships that faded revealed where you had abandoned yourself to be accepted. The disappointments exposed expectations built on illusion. The delays forced you to confront emotional wounds you would have continued avoiding if life had remained comfortable. And yes, those realizations hurt. Some nights it felt unbearable to sit with the uncertainty. Some mornings you woke up exhausted from trying to understand why everything felt so heavy. You questioned yourself repeatedly. You wondered whether you had made the wrong choices, whether you had somehow ruined your own future. But the truth is, your life was not falling apart. It was being restructured around the person you were becoming. Because no one can carry an outdated identity into a higher timeline without eventually collapsing under the weight of contradiction. Transformation demands release. It demands the death of versions of yourself that cannot survive where your soul is trying to lead you. That is why disruption is sacred, even when it arrives painfully. It is movement. It is evolution forcing itself into motion before your fear can stop it. And lately you have been feeling this shift more intensely than ever before, haven't you? At first it was subtle, almost impossible to explain. Small moments where things that once mattered suddenly felt emotionally distant. Conversations that used to excite you began feeling empty. Places that once brought comfort now felt strangely disconnected. Then the feeling deepened. Waves of clarity would hit unexpectedly, moments where you suddenly understood yourself with painful honesty, followed by periods where nothing felt certain at all. It was as if one part of you was awakening, while another part was grieving the loss of the life you once recognized. You began pulling away internally from people who no longer resonated with your energy, not because you hated them, but because your spirit could no longer pretend alignment where none existed. At the same time, another force started pulling you towards something unfamiliar, something invisible yet impossible to ignore. A quiet inner calling toward a future you cannot fully describe, but somehow already feel emotionally connected to. And this in-between phase can feel terrifying if you misunderstand it. Many people think they are becoming unstable during this stage. They think the emotional detachment means something is wrong. But what you're experiencing is not collapse. It is ascension. Your frequency is changing, and as it rises, anything unable to meet that frequency naturally begins separating from your reality. That is why your life no longer feels solid in the same way it once did. You are not losing yourself. You are transcending the version of yourself that was built for survival instead of alignment. This is the threshold of your miracle timeline, even if it currently feels unfamiliar instead of magical. And there will be a moment during this process where everything becomes frighteningly quiet. The signs you once depended on seem to disappear. The reassurance you desperately hoped for never arrives. The direction you thought would become obvious suddenly feels distant again. This phase unsettles people deeply because silence forces you to confront whether your faith depends on constant validation. It can feel like abandonment if you do not understand what is truly happening beneath the surface. But silence is not rejection. Silence is preparation. There are realities being arranged beyond your current perception. Conversations unfolding you cannot yet hear. Doors shifting quietly into position before they open. Timelines rearranging themselves with a level of precision your human perspective could never fully comprehend. And during this stage, your greatest challenge is not action. It is trust. Not blind trust rooted in denial, but grounded trust rooted in inner knowing, the ability to remain centered even when external evidence has not yet appeared. Because what is coming into your life cannot be built from panic, desperation, or emotional chaos. It requires stillness. It requires surrender. It requires you to stop forcing outcomes long enough for the universe to place you where you truly belong. This quiet season is not empty. It is sacred. It is the space where your reality is being rewritten underneath the surface of your visible life. And eventually you will look back and realize the silence was not the absence of movement at all. It was the final moment before everything began changing permanently. There were also times you convinced yourself you had somehow fallen behind everyone else. Watching other people move forward while your own life seemed suspended in uncertainty created a pain you rarely admitted out loud. You compared timelines. You questioned your worth. You told yourself stories about missed opportunities, lost years, and dreams that perhaps would never arrive. You wondered if you had waited too long, if you were too late, if you simply were not enough. But those fears were never the truth. They were interpretations created by a mind exhausted from not yet seeing the larger design. Because the reality is far more powerful than you realize. You were never being denied. You were being aligned. Every delay protected you from stepping into experiences your old mindset could not have sustained. Had certain doors opened earlier, you would have entered them carrying the same emotional wounds, the same unconscious patterns, the same limited awareness that would have eventually destroyed the very blessings you prayed for. Waiting was not punishment. Waiting was preparation. Every pause strengthened something within you that you could not yet see. And now, after everything you have survived internally, something inside you has finally begun to shift in a way that can no longer be reversed. The version of you that once stood in confusion, exhausted from waiting for answers that never seemed to come, no longer exists in the same way it once did. You may still carry memories of those moments, the nights where frustration sat heavily on your chest, the mornings where it felt impossible to understand why life kept stretching your patience beyond what felt fair. But something fundamental inside you has changed since then. The pressure did not break you, the silence did not erase you, the disappointments that once made you question your path did not destroy your spirit the way you feared they would. Instead, they revealed a strength within you that could only emerge through experience. You are no longer operating from the same level of awareness you carried during those earlier seasons of your life. There is more depth in you now, more emotional intelligence, more spiritual clarity, more connection to yourself than ever before. And perhaps most importantly, there is now a connection forming between you and something far greater than your fear. That is why everything is beginning to feel different around you. Because when your opportunity fully arrives, and deep down you already feel that it is approaching, you will not enter it as the same uncertain person who once begged life for validation. You will enter it prepared, emotionally ready, spiritually grounded, strong enough to hold what once would have overwhelmed you. There were phases in this journey where the emptiness around you felt almost unbearable, moments where the lack of understanding from others cut more deeply than you admitted. You may have looked around and wondered why your path seemed so lonely compared to everyone else, why you always felt emotionally separated even while surrounded by people, why it seemed like others could move through life effortlessly while you were being forced inward again and again. But what felt like isolation was never abandonment from the universe. It was initiation into a deeper version of yourself. You were being pulled away from external noise because your soul needed space to awaken. The endless opinions, distractions, and expectations surrounding you had become too loud for you to hear your own inner truth clearly. So life created distance, not to punish you, but to strip away everything that kept you disconnected from your authentic power. Because if you had remained constantly surrounded by approval, comfort, and external influence, you would have continued building your identity around the expectations of others instead of the calling inside yourself. You would have kept searching outside yourself for permission to become who you were always meant to be. But souls walking a higher path are not shaped through endless validation. They are refined in solitude. They are transformed in the quiet moments nobody else witnesses. It is in loneliness that illusions begin collapsing. It is in silence that hidden truths become impossible to ignore. And yes, those seasons hurt deeply. There were times where the stillness around you made you question your worth. Times where the absence of connection made you wonder if something was fundamentally wrong with you. Yet that lonely space became sacred, even if you could not recognize it at the time. Because it was there, in the uncomfortable silence, that you slowly stopped needing constant approval from the outside world. It was there that you began discovering your own authority, your own voice, your own spiritual strength. You were never truly alone during those moments. You were being prepared to stand in your own energy without needing others to define your value for you. And throughout all of it, there has always been a voice inside you quietly guiding the process. A voice that existed long before you learned how to listen consciously. It never screamed for attention. It never forced itself into your awareness aggressively. Instead, it moved gently through feelings, instincts, sudden emotional reactions, and subtle inner nudges that logic could not fully explain. That voice is your intuition, and it has been trying to guide you back toward alignment your entire life. The problem was never the absence of guidance. The problem was that you were conditioned to distrust yourself. From an early age, you were taught to prioritize external authority over internal knowing. You learned to ignore your instincts in order to fit into systems that rewarded disconnection from the soul. So every time your intuition whispered that something felt wrong, you questioned yourself instead of listening. Every time your spirit tried warning you through discomfort, you convinced yourself you were overthinking. But now that connection is returning stronger than before. You're beginning to recognize the difference between what drains your energy and what expands it. You are learning to notice when something feels aligned even before evidence appears. You are finally understanding that not every truth can be explained logically. This is not coincidence. This is recalibration happening in real time. Your intuition is becoming active again because the next phase of your life cannot be navigated through logic alone. The path ahead requires trust in your deeper knowing. And every time you honor that inner voice, instead of silencing it, it grows louder, clearer, more undeniable. You are not wandering aimlessly through life the way you once feared. You are being guided internally toward the reality meant for you. There also came a subtle turning point in your evolution that almost escaped your attention at first. One day, you realized the constant urgency inside you had begun fading. The exhausting need to chase every outcome, force every opportunity, and control every detail no longer consumed you the same way it once had. And this shift did not happen because you stopped caring about your future. It happened because your soul matured beyond the belief that everything valuable must be fought for through suffering. You started realizing something profound. What is meant for you is already moving toward you at the same time you are moving toward it. Alignment stopped feeling like endless struggle and started feeling like resonance. You began understanding that power does not come from frantic chasing. It comes from becoming internally aligned enough to receive. That was the moment your energy changed completely, because chasing is rooted in fear and lack. Chasing assumes something important exists outside yourself and must be captured before it disappears. But alignment carries a completely different frequency. Alignment is the deep inner knowing that what belongs to you will recognize you when the time is right. And the moment you unconsciously stepped into that understanding, your entire energetic presence shifted. You entered a frequency where life no longer responds to desperation, but to resonance. A frequency where opportunities, people, and experiences begin gravitating toward you naturally instead of needing to be forced into existence. Most people never reach this level because they spend their lives exhausting themselves trying to control outcomes they were never meant to control. But you reached it through everything you survived internally. And now your reality is beginning to respond to you differently because you are no longer operating from the same wounded energy. There is also a deeper form of power, awakening inside you now. One that only becomes accessible when a person finally loosens their grip on how life must unfold. True spiritual strength is not found in controlling every detail. It is found in trusting enough to release control completely. Detachment is often misunderstood by people who are still trapped in fear. They mistake detachment for apathy or emotional distance, but real detachment is something far more powerful. It is trust becoming embodied. It is the understanding that what is truly aligned with your soul cannot bypass you, cannot be stolen from you, and cannot be destroyed by temporary circumstances outside your control. The tighter people cling in fear, the more resistance they create against the natural movement of alignment. But the moment surrender happens, the moment you stop trying to force every answer and release your obsession with controlling the outcome, something inside your reality begins opening again. Energy starts moving where it once felt blocked. Possibilities begin appearing where stagnation once existed. And that shift you are feeling now is only the beginning of what is about to unfold next. There are moments when life suddenly begins moving in ways your logical mind cannot fully explain. Moments where doors appear where there were once only walls. Moments where opportunities emerge from directions you never anticipated. And when that happens, most people call it luck because they do not understand the deeper truth underneath it. The universe does not respond to desperation no matter how intensely someone begs for change. It responds to alignment. It responds to energy that has finally stopped fighting itself. And this is why detachment becomes so powerful, because detachment opens the doorway that allows alignment to finally enter your life freely. Think carefully about the experiences you once dismissed as coincidence, the strange timing of certain encounters, the repeated situations that kept returning until you could no longer ignore the lesson hidden inside them. The people who arrived in your life at exactly the moment you needed guidance, healing, or redirection, only to disappear once their purpose had been fulfilled. None of that was random. None of it was meaningless. Your life has been speaking to you through patterns this entire time. The universe rarely communicates through dramatic announcements. It speaks through subtle alignment, through synchronicities so precise they quietly shake something inside your soul awake. Yet for years you may not have recognized the signs because you were still searching for certainty in external places, instead of learning how to see through deeper awareness. But now something inside you has begun opening. You are noticing the patterns more clearly than before. You are starting to feel when unseen forces are quietly rearranging your path. You are sensing that certain events carry meaning far beyond surface appearances. This is not imagination. This is consciousness expanding beyond limitation. And once this awareness activates inside you, it becomes impossible to return to the old way of seeing reality. Suddenly you realize your life has never been unfolding randomly. There has always been precision underneath the chaos, guidance hidden beneath the uncertainty, movement occurring behind the scenes even when you believed nothing was happening at all. There is also a truth buried deep within your pain that only reveals itself when you become emotionally ready to face it honestly. The experiences that shattered you emotionally, the moments that left invisible scars on your spirit, the seasons where you questioned your worth, your future, and even your reason for continuing forward. Those experiences were never just suffering, they were initiations disguised as pain. They were doorways, leading you toward a deeper understanding of yourself than comfort ever could have revealed. Pain strips illusions away with brutal honesty. It forces you to confront truths you would have continued avoiding if life had remained easy. It exposes wounds that need healing. It reveals emotional patterns that need releasing. It breaks apart identities that can no longer carry you into your future. And while those moments may have felt like destruction while you were living through them, they were actually shaping a stronger version of you underneath the surface. Because the awareness you carry now did not appear accidentally. The resilience inside you was built through survival. The emotional depth you possess was carved through difficult experiences that demanded growth from you. Your perception became sharper because pain forced you to see beneath appearances. Nothing you endured was wasted. Your suffering did not weaken your spirit the way you feared it would. It initiated you into a level of power and self-awareness you could never have accessed any other way. Every painful doorway you walked through revealed another layer of your strength. And on the other side of those experiences, something greater began waiting for you. Now you are entering another phase of this transformation, one that can no longer be ignored no matter how much part of you still wants to hold on to familiarity. The old version of your life is dissolving piece by piece right in front of you. What once felt stable now feels uncertain. What once felt emotionally important now feels strangely distant. And this shift can feel deeply unsettling because your human mind interprets unfamiliarity as danger. But this is not loss. This is transition. You are stepping away from a timeline built around survival and moving toward one aligned with who you are actually becoming. There will be moments where this process feels disorienting, almost like standing between two realities at once. One part of you still remembers the old identity, while another part is already reaching towards something entirely new. This in-between space can feel emotionally exhausting because you are no longer fully connected to who you used to be, yet you have not completely anchored into who you are becoming either. But this space is sacred. This is where transformation happens. This is where the old identity loosens its grip long enough for a more aligned version of yourself to emerge. You are not moving backward, no matter how uncertain things may sometimes feel. You are moving forward into a reality your current perspective cannot fully see yet, but your soul already recognizes deeply. And there is a truth within this process that changes everything once you allow yourself to fully believe it. The life your spirit has been trying to move toward is not fantasy. Your miracle timeline is not imagination. It is not false hope created to comfort you temporarily. It is a real reality existing alongside the version of life you have been experiencing until now. It is the version where opportunities unfold naturally instead of through endless struggle. The version where relationships feel aligned rather than forced. The version where clarity replaces confusion and your path begins revealing itself with precision instead of chaos. And the most important realization of all is this: you were never separated from that reality. Every shift you've experienced internally has been moving you closer toward it. Every awakening, every painful realization, every moment where you chose growth instead of fear has been changing your frequency little by little. Because the only thing that ever kept your miracle timeline feeling distant was energetic mismatch. But now your energy is changing. Your awareness is expanding. Your alignment is strengthening. You are becoming emotionally and spiritually compatible with the reality that once felt impossible to reach. And as you continue trusting yourself, releasing resistance, and stepping forward despite uncertainty, that higher timeline begins merging with your present reality more and more each day. This is not the conclusion of your transformation. This is the beginning of the life your soul has been preparing for all along.